Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in life when the noise fades, friends become fewer, phone calls grow silent, and you find yourself alone. To some, this is frightening. To others, it's uncomfortable. But let me tell you something that may just change how you see solitude. Being alone is not a curse, it is a gift. It's not a weakness, it's a power. Many people fear being alone because they associate it with loneliness. But there's a difference. Loneliness is a feeling. Being alone is a state of being. And in that state, there lies a profound power that can transform your life if you choose to embrace it. Let's explore the 5 powerful truths about why being alone is a power. There comes a moment in life when you sit in the quiet. No phones buzzing, no conversations humming in the background, no distractions pulling you left and right. Just you. And in that stillness, you realize something. You're face to face with yourself. For some, that realization is comforting. For others, it's terrifying. Why? Because being alone forces you to confront the one person you can't escape you. It strips away the noise of the world, the opinions, the judgments, the expectations, and what's left is your own voice echoing back at you. The question is, are you listening? You see, most people spend their lives running from silence, from stillness, from solitude. They fill their days with chatter, their nights with distractions, all to avoid being alone with their thoughts. But the truth is, when you're alone, that's when you meet the most important person in your life. Not your friends, not your family, you. And it's in that meeting where self-awareness is born. Think about Itho. Can you truly know what you want if you're always surrounded by what everyone else wants for you? How can you understand your own dreams if you're constantly bombarded by the dreams society tells you to chase? Solitude creates a space, a sanctuary, where you can finally hear that inner voice that's been whispering all along. Who am I? What do I really want? Am I living for myself or for the approval of others? Look at the people who've changed the world, those who've made an impact that echoes through history. Albert Einstein wasn't sitting in a crowded room when the theory of relativity sparked in his mind. No, he spent hours in solitude, lost in thought, allowing his mind to roam free beyond the constraints of everyday noise. Steve Jobs, known for his visionary ideas, would take long, solitary walks. Why? Because he understood that in stillness, clarity is born. They weren't afraid of being alone. They sought it out because they knew solitude wasn't about isolation. It was about connection. Connection not with others, but with their inner truth. But let's bring it closer to home. Think about the times in your own life when you've had breakthrough moments of clarity, sudden realizations, that gut feeling telling you which direction to take. I'll bet those moments didn't happen in the middle of a loud party or a crowded room. They came when you were alone, maybe driving down an empty road, staring at the ceiling late at night, or walking quietly through nature. That's the power of solitude. It creates space for the truth to rise to the surface. And sometimes the truth isn't comfortable, but it's necessary. When you spend time alone, you begin to see yourself without filters. You notice your strengths, the resilience you didn't realize you had, the talents you've overlooked, the passions you've buried under what ifs and maybe laters. But solitude isn't just about discovering what's good, it's about confronting what's not. You start to see the habits holding you back, the fears controlling your choices, the excuses you've been making. And that honesty, that's where growth begins. Because you can't change what you refuse to acknowledge. But let me tell you, it's not easy. Looking in the mirror and facing your flaws, your mistakes, your pain, that takes courage. It's far easier to distract yourself, to blame others, to keep moving so fast you never have to stop and think. But if you want to grow, if you want to evolve into the person you're meant to be, you've got to face yourself. And that journey begins in solitude. There's a story I once heard about a man climbing a mountain. At the base, he was surrounded by people cheering, talking, sharing stories. But as he climbed higher, the crowd thinned. Friends turned back, the path narrowed, and eventually it was just him, alone. Every step became harder, every breath shorter. But when he reached the top, standing there in the silence, looking out over the world, it hit him. The climb was his own, the struggle was his own, and the victory, that was his too. Life is like that climb. People will walk with you for parts of the journey, but the most critical steps, the ones that define you, you'll take alone. And that's not something to fear. It's something to embrace. Because those solitary steps are where you find out what you're really made of. Now, some might say, but I don't want to be alone. I need people. I need support. And yes, connection is vital. We're wired for community. But there's a difference between needing people and depending on them for your sense of self. If you don't know who you are when you're alone, you'll lose yourself in the crowd. You'll bend, twist, and change to fit what others expect, forgetting that your true power lies in authenticity. And authenticity begins with self-awareness. There's also freedom in solitude. Freedom from constant comparison. Freedom from living for likes, follows, and applause. When you spend time alone, you stop asking, what do they think of me? And start asking, what do I think of me? You stop chasing validation and start cultivating self-respect. You begin to understand that the world's approval is fleeting, but the relationship you have with yourself, that lasts a lifetime. Consider artists, writers, musicians. So much of their craft is honed in solitude, not because they hate people, but because they understand that creativity requires space. Space to think, to feel, to explore ideas without judgment. Your life is your masterpiece, but you can't paint it if the canvas is cluttered with everyone else's brushstrokes. Clear the space. Sit in the quiet. Hear your own heartbeat. That's where your masterpiece begins. And let's not forget, solitude isn't just for the hard times. It's a tool you can use every day. Take a walk without your phone. Sit in silence for 10 minutes. Journal your thoughts. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be intentional. Little moments of solitude, practiced consistently, can change how you see yourself and how you show up in the world. So, why do so many avoid solitude? Because facing yourself means facing your fears, the fear of not being enough, the fear of wasted time, the fear that maybe you've been on the wrong path. But here's the truth. Ignoring those fears doesn't make them go away. Facing them, that's how you conquer them. There's immense strength in looking in the mirror and saying, this is who I am, flaws and all, strengths and all. And I accept myself, not because I'm perfect, but because I'm willing to grow. That kind of self-awareness isn't handed to you. It's earned in the quiet, in the stillness, in the solitude. So I ask you, when was the last time you sat alone, without distractions, and really listened to yourself? Not just surface thoughts, but the deeper ones. The ones you push aside when life gets busy. The ones that hold the keys to your purpose, your happiness, your peace. Solitude isn't about being lonely. It's about being present with yourself, for yourself. It's about finding the courage to explore the parts of you that need attention, healing, and love. And when you do that, when you truly meet yourself in those quiet moments, you'll discover a power you never knew you had. A power that comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you're capable of. And that's the kind of power no one can take away. There's something remarkable that happens when you're alone. Not just physically alone, but mentally separated from the noise, the distractions, the constant barrage of information pulling you in every direction. Have you ever wondered why some of your best ideas seem to come out of nowhere when you're taking a shower, driving down an empty road, or taking a quiet walk? It's not a coincidence. There's a reason creativity often sparks in those moments of solitude. When the world quiets down, when the background noise fades, your mind finally has the space to breathe. That's when imagination wakes up. That's when solutions reveal themselves, and ideas you didn't even know you had start to surface. You see, the world today is louder than ever. Notifications buzzing every second, conversations happening all around us, media demanding our attention 24/7. It's no wonder creativity feels blocked. At times it's hard for inspiration to break through all that noise. But when you pull away, when you step back and create space for yourself, it's like clearing out a cluttered room. Suddenly, there's room to think, room to dream, room to explore thoughts you didn't even realize were waiting for you. Creativity doesn't thrive in chaos, it thrives in calm. Think about J.K. Rowling. She wasn't in a brainstorming meeting or scrolling through her phone when the idea for Harry Potter struck her. She was on a delayed train, sitting alone, with nothing but her thoughts for company. In that stillness, her imagination began to wander. She didn't push the idea away or dismiss it, she embraced it. And what started as a simple thought on a quiet train ride turned into a world that captured the hearts of millions. That's the power of solitude. It gives your mind permission to roam, to connect dots you never knew were related, to explore possibilities that seemed out of reach before. But you don't have to be a world-famous author to experience that kind of breakthrough. You've probably had moments when you're lying in bed just before sleep and an idea pops into your head out of nowhere. Or maybe you've been on a solo walk and a solution to a problem you've been wrestling with suddenly becomes crystal clear. That's because solitude creates a mental environment where creativity isn't forced, it flows naturally. The pressure is off, the distractions are gone, and what's left is pure, unfiltered thought. The beauty of being alone is that there's no judgment in that space. No one telling you your idea is crazy or unrealistic. No one interrupting your train of thought. It's just you, exploring the corners of your mind, uncovering ideas that might have been buried under the busyness of life. And sometimes the best ideas are the ones that seem the most outlandish at first, the ones you wouldn't dare say out loud. But in solitude, there's no need to censor yourself. You can dream big. You can think wild thoughts. You can let your imagination run without a leash. There was a man named Nikola Tesla, a brilliant inventor whose work laid the foundation for much of the technology we use today. Tesla was known for spending hours, even days, alone with his thoughts. People thought he was eccentric, maybe even odd, but he understood something most people overlook. Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. Tesla's ideas didn't come from constant collaboration or crowded rooms. They came from the quiet, from allowing his mind to dive deep into thought without interruption. And it's not just about solving big problems or coming up with groundbreaking inventions. Solitude fuels everyday creativity too. Maybe you're trying to figure out how to handle a challenge at work, improve a relationship, or find a new direction in life. Alone time gives you the clarity to see things from a different angle. It's like stepping back from a painting to see the whole picture instead of just focusing on one brush stroke. Sometimes the solution isn't something you need to go out and find, it's something that's been inside you all along, just waiting for a moment of quiet to reveal itself. Let's be real. We live in a culture that often equates busyness with productivity. People wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. Constant meetings, endless scrolling, background noise filling every second of the day. But creativity isn't born from being busy, it's born from being present. And you can't be truly present if your mind is constantly pulled in a dozen directions. That's why some of the most innovative thinkers intentionally seek out solitude. They know that brilliance isn't found in the rush, it's found in the pause. Imagine a musician composing a song. Sure, collaboration is important, but the melody often begins in those quiet moments alone with an instrument. Picture an artist staring at a blank canvas, letting inspiration guide each brushstroke. Think of an entrepreneur sitting in silence, sketching out the next big idea that could change their life or the world. These creative sparks don't come from constant noise. They come from moments when the world fades away, and you're left with nothing but your thoughts and possibilities. But solitude isn't always easy. In fact, it can be uncomfortable at first. We become so accustomed to constant stimulation that sitting alone in silence can feel strange, even unsettling. Your mind might race with random thoughts, old memories, or worries. That's normal. But if you sit with that discomfort, push past the urge to distract yourself, something incredible happens. The mental clutter starts to clear, your breathing slows, your thoughts begin to organize themselves. And that's when creativity kicks in, not forced, not rushed, just flowing naturally like a river finding its course. I remember hearing a story about a young man who struggled to come up with new ideas at work. He was always busy, always surrounded by people, always multitasking. One day, out of frustration, he decided to take a weekend away, no phone, no laptop, just himself and nature. At first, his mind was a whirlwind of stress and to-do lists. But after a day of walking through the woods, sitting by a quiet lake, something shifted. Ideas started coming, ideas that had eluded him for months. By the time he returned to work, he had solutions, creative concepts, and a renewed sense of clarity. It wasn't magician, it was the power of solitude. So what does this mean for you? It means making space for stillness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It means giving yourself permission to step away from the noise, to embrace the quiet, to let your mind wander without direction. Because in that wandering, you just might stumble upon something extraordinary. A new perspective, a fresh idea, A spark of inspiration that sets you on a path you never expected. It doesn't have to be complicated. Start small. Take a walk without your phone. Sit in a room with no music, no screens, just you and your thoughts. Journal whatever comes to mind. Don't judge the thoughts, just let them flow. At first, it might feel like nothing's happening, but give it time. Creativity doesn't always show up with fireworks and grand entrances. Sometimes it tiptoes in quietly, waiting to see if you're paying attention. And when that moment comes, when the idea strikes, when the solution clicks, when the inspiration floods in, you'll realize it wasn't the noise that helped you find it. It was the silence, the solitude, the space you created for your mind to explore. That's where brilliance is born. Not in the chaos, not in the crowd, but in the calm. There's a raw truth about life that many people don't want to hear sometimes. You'll have to walk the path alone. There won't always be a hand to hold, a friend to lean on, or a crowd cheering you on. There will be moments when it's just you standing in front of life's challenges with no one else to call but yourself. And you know what? That's not something to fear. That's something to embrace. Because in those moments when the world goes quiet and the safety net disappears, you discover something powerful: your independence. Imagine someone training for a marathon. No one can run those 26.2 miles for them. They wake up before the sun, lace up their shoes, and hit the pavement alone. No applause, no crowd. Just the sound of their footsteps echoing in the early morning streets, and the voice in their head telling them to keep going. That discipline, that grit, it's forged in those lonely runs when quitting would be easy, but perseverance wins out. The finish line isn't just about crossing it on race day. It's about all those quiet mornings and painful miles when no one was watching, and they chose to push forward anyway. That's the essence of independence. It's built when you show up for yourself time and time again. Life doesn't always give us a support system. Sure, there are times when friends and family are there to catch you when you fall, but what about the times they aren't? What about those dark nights when the phone stays silent, and the only person you can rely on is the one staring back at you in the mirror? That's when you learn the most important lesson of all. You don't need to be rescued. You become your own hero. You find a way to solve your problems, to navigate the obstacles, to stand tall, even when the weight of the world tries to pull you down. Think about the stories of people who've risen from nothing. Oprah Winfrey, for example, faced unimaginable hardships growing up: poverty, abuse, rejection. There were countless moments when she stood alone, with no one but herself to rely on. But she didn't let that break her. She used those moments to build resilience, to trust her own instincts, to keep moving forward when every door seemed to close. Today, the world sees her success, but what they don't always see are those solitary battles that forged her independence. Solitude isn't just about being physically alone. It's about standing on your own, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It's about making decisions without seeking constant validation. It's about trusting your judgment even when others doubt you. When you cultivate that kind of independence, you stop waiting for someone else to make things happen for you. You take responsibility for your life. You start to realize that your happiness, your progress, your future, it's all in your hands. No one's coming to hand you a map. You've got to draw your own. There's an old saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That has wisdom, no doubt. But let me tell you, sometimes, to go far, you first need to learn how to walk alone. Because if you can't stand on your own 2 feet, you'll always be dependent on someone else to carry you. And life isn't designed for that kind of dependency. People come and go, circumstances change. What stays constant is you, your drive, your ability to weather the storm. Consider the journey of an entrepreneur building a business from scratch. In the beginning, there are no guarantees, no promise of success, no safety net. Nights spent working alone, days filled with rejection, moments when giving up seems like the easiest option. But those who push through, who rely on their determination rather than waiting for external motivation, are the ones who make it. Independence in those moments isn't just a nice concept, it's the difference between success and failure. Steve Jobs once said, "I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance. Perseverance born in solitude, in the quiet hours when no one else believes but you." Being alone forces you to confront yourself, your fears, your doubts, your insecurities. And that confrontation isn't always comfortable. In fact, it can be downright painful. But growth rarely comes from comfort. It comes from facing those hard truths and choosing to move forward anyway. You learn that the world owes you nothing. No one is obligated to save you, to hand you opportunities, to make your dreams come true. That responsibility falls squarely on your shoulders. And while that might sound heavy, it's actually liberating. Because once you accept that, you stop waiting for external circumstances to align. You start creating your own opportunities. You realize you've had the power all along. There's strength in knowing that you can weather the storm alone. There's pride in standing on your own 2 feet and saying, I did this, I built this, I overcame this. No one can take that from you. That kind of self-reliance creates an unshakable foundation. Life can throw curveballs, but when you've built your house on the rock of independence, you don't crumble at the first sign of trouble. You stand tall, you adjust, you keep moving. Look at athletes who train tirelessly for competitions. The medals and trophies are just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath that success are countless hours spent alone, in the gym, on the track, in the pool, pushing through pain, exhaustion, and doubt. No coach can do those reps for them. No teammate can run those extra miles. It's in those solitary moments that champions are made, and that's true in life too. Your greatest achievements will be rooted in the work you do when no one's watching. Sometimes people will doubt you. They'll question your path, your decisions, your dreams. And if you rely too much on external support, those voices can derail you. But when you've built independence, those doubts don't shake you. You know who you are. You know what you're capable of. You face the silence, embrace the solitude, and come out stronger on the other side. That kind of confidence doesn't come from applause, it comes from resilience built in the quiet. And let's not forget, solitude also helps you appreciate connection. When you know how to stand alone, your relationships become a choice, not a crutch. You don't cling to people out of need, you connect out of desire. There's a difference between wanting support and depending on it. Independence means you're whole on your own, and any support you receive is just a bonus, not a requirement. The journey to independence isn't always easy. There will be moments of doubt, loneliness, and fear, but those moments are the proving ground. They're where you discover just how much you can endure, just how far you can push, just how capable you really are. And when you come out on the other side, when you achieve that goal or overcome that obstacle, you'll look back and realize that being alone wasn't a setback, it was a setup for your strength. So the next time you find yourself standing alone, don't see it as a curse, see it as an opportunity, a chance to prove to yourself that you don't need to be carried. You've got what it takes to walk, to run, to soar on your own. Independence isn't something that's handed to you, it's something you build. Brick by brick, step by step, moment by moment. And when you reach the top, when you stand on that mountaintop and look back at the climb, you'll know you didn't get there by luck or handouts. You got there because you stood up, stood strong, and stood alone when it mattered most. Life has a way of testing us in ways we never expect. It throws curveballs when we least anticipate them. People you thought you could rely on walk away. Circumstances shift like sand beneath your feet, leaving you grasping for stability. And in those moments, it's easy to feel like the world is conspiring against you, like you're drowning in a sea of uncertainty. But that's when you discover something profound. Your greatest strength isn't found in times of comfort and ease. No, it's revealed when you're standing alone in the middle of the storm, battered by the winds of life, and you choose to keep standing anyway. Think about Nelson Mandela, 27 years, 27 long, grueling years spent in a prison cell, cut off from the world, isolated from family, from friends. Imagine the silence that surrounded him. Imagine the nights that stretched on endlessly, the walls closing in, the weight of injustice pressing down on his spirit. Most people would have broken under that kind of pressure. Most would have given in to bitterness, to anger, to despair, but not him. He emerged from that solitude not as a man consumed by vengeance, but as a leader fueled by compassion, by strength, by resilience. Solitude didn't destroy him, it forged him into one of the greatest symbols of endurance the world has ever known. That's the power of solitude. It strips away the noise, the distractions, the crutches we so often lean on. It forces you to confront yourself, to face the rawness of your emotions without any buffers. When you're alone with your thoughts, your fears, your doubts, there's no escaping them. And that's where the real work begins. You learn to sit with pain, not run from it. You learn to process anger, not be consumed by it. You grow through struggle because there's nowhere else to go but through it. Resilience isn't something that's handed to you. It's not a gift someone can bestow. It's earned painfully, deliberately in those quiet moments when giving up seems like the easiest option, but you decide to press on anyway. When the weight of grief sits heavy on your chest, when disappointment knocks you to your knees, when betrayal cuts deeper than you thought possible, those are the moments that define you. Not because of what happens to you, but because of how you respond. Do you let it break you, or do you use it to build something stronger within yourself? Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. Rain pelting down, wind howling in your ears, the world around you a blur of chaos. You could curl up, shield yourself, wait for it to pass, or you could plant your feet, lift your head, and face it head on. That's what solitude demands. It challenges you to be your own anchor when everything else is shaking, to find calm in the turmoil, to steady your breathing when panic creeps in, to remind yourself that storms don't last forever when they feel like they do. Life isn't fair. It won't always give you what you want. People will let you down. Doors will close. Plans will fall apart. But what you do in response, that's where your power lies. Too often, we look outward for solutions, for someone to save us, to make things easier. But what if the solution isn't out there? What if it's been within you all along? Solitude forces you to dig deep, to tap into reserves of strength you didn't know you had. It shows you that you're capable of more than you ever imagined, not because someone told you so, but because you proved it to yourself. There's something liberating about realizing you don't need external validation to keep moving forward. When you've weathered storms on your own, when you've sat with sorrow and still managed to rise the next morning, you carry a quiet confidence that no one can take from you. It's not loud or boastful. It's steady, unwavering, a knowledge that no matter what life throws your way, you can handle it. You've handled worse. You've stood in the darkness and found your own light. Solitude isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. It forces you to slow down, to reflect, to feel things you'd rather bury. But that discomfort, that's where the growth happens. You start to recognize patterns in your thoughts, to see how often you've sought distractions to avoid facing what's inside. But when you sit in that stillness long enough, you begin to peel back the layers. You confront the fears that have been holding you back. You challenge the stories you've been telling yourself, stories of inadequacy, of failure, of unworthiness. And in doing so, you reclaim your power. Think about how iron is forged. It's subjected to intense heat, hammered repeatedly, shaped and reshaped, until it becomes something strong, something resilient. That's what solitude does to the human spirit. It puts you through the fire, yes, but it also molds you, strengthens you, refines you. The cracks and scars you carry, they aren't signs of weakness. They're proof of survival, of resilience earned through hardship. And here's the thing, when you've built that kind of resilience, you don't just survive adversity, you thrive because of it. Challenges become opportunities to test your strength. Setbacks become lessons, not roadblocks. You stop fearing failure because you understand that failure isn't the end, it's a stepping stone. Every time you fall and pick yourself back up, you reinforce the belief that you are capable, that you are strong, that you are resilient beyond measure. Life will keep testing you, that's a guarantee. But with every challenge, every disappointment, every moment of solitude, you have a choice. You can let it harden you, make you bitter, close you off, or you can let it shape you into someone wiser, stronger, more compassionate. Someone who doesn't just endure the storm but emerges from it with greater clarity, purpose, and resilience. When Nelson Mandela walked out of that prison after 27 years, he didn't just walk into freedom. He walked into a future he had built through years of solitary reflection, of emotional resilience, honed in the harshest conditions. He taught us that solitude doesn't have to be a prison. Sometimes it's the very crucible in which our greatest strengths are forged. So when life tests you, and it will remember this, your strength isn't measured by how easy things are. It's measured by how you endure when things get hard, by how you face your fears, your pain, your solitude, and choose to rise anyway. Life is loud, it's chaotic, it's filled with voices, some encouraging, some doubting, some telling you who you should be, what you should do, how you should live. And it's easy to get lost in that noise, to wake up one day and realize you've been living for everyone else but yourself. But when you take a step back, when you allow yourself to be alone, really alone, something incredible happens. The distractions fade, the pressure eases. And for the first time in a long time, you can hear your own voice. There's a reason why some of the greatest breakthroughs, the biggest moments of clarity, happen in solitude. When you remove the expectations, the obligations, the need for approval, what's left? You, your purpose, your values, the things that truly matter. Think about how often do we chase after things just because the world tells us they're important. The job with the title, the house with the view, the relationship that looks good on paper. But do those things align with who you are, or are they just decorations on a life that feels empty? Imagine climbing a mountain. At the bottom, you're surrounded by people, friends, family, co-workers, strangers, all walking with you, all talking, all sharing their opinions. And for a while, it's nice, it's comforting, but as you climb higher, the path narrows, fewer people can walk beside you, the air gets thinner, the journey gets harder, and eventually you reach a point where you have to continue alone. Not because you don't love those people, not because they don't matter, but because some parts of the journey are meant for you and you alone. And when you finally reach the top, when you stand there looking out at the world from a place most people never reach, you realize something: the view is clearer, the distractions are gone. And for the first time, you see things for what they really are. That's what solitude does. It strips away the unnecessary, the superficial, the things you once thought mattered but don't. It forces you to ask yourself, what do I really want? What truly matters to me? Not what your parents want, not what society expects, not what looks good on social media, but what aligns with your soul. And when you figure that out, when you get clear on your purpose, everything changes. You stop chasing empty goals. You stop seeking validation. You stop living for applause and start living for something deeper. Think about some of the most successful people in the world. The visionaries, the pioneers, the ones who changed history. They all had moments of solitude, times when they had to step away from the crowd, block out the noise, and listen to their own intuition. Steve Jobs didn't build Apple by following the crowd. He spent time alone, thinking, dreaming, questioning. Oprah Winfrey didn't become who she is by doing what everyone else expected. She took the time to understand her purpose, to follow her own path. Every great leader, every game changer has had moments when they had to walk alone to find clarity. But here's the thing, being alone isn't always easy. It can be uncomfortable. It can feel isolating. Because when you strip everything away, when you're left with just yourself, you have to face things you might have been avoiding. The doubts, the insecurities, the fears. But that's the work. That's the process. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. Clarity doesn't come from distractions. You have to sit with yourself. You have to ask the hard questions. And when you do, you start to see what really matters. How many people wake up every day dreading the life they're living? They go to jobs they hate. They stay in relationships that drain them. They follow routines that bring them no joy. And why? Because they never took the time to be alone, to reflect, to ask themselves, is this the life I want? They just kept moving, kept following the script society handed them. But life isn't meant to be lived on autopilot. It's meant to be lived with intention, with purpose, with clarity. When you take time for solitude, when you embrace it instead of fearing it, you give yourself a gift. You give yourself the space to dream, to plan, to align your actions with your true desires. You stop making decisions based on pressure and start making them based on passion. And that changes everything. You start choosing work that fulfills you, not just work that pays the bills. You start surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, not just people who are convenient. You start making moves that excite you, that energize you, that make you feel alive. And the beautiful thing is, once you get clear on what matters, you become unstoppable. Because when you know why you're doing something, when you have a purpose that's bigger than approval, than money, than status, nothing can shake you. You won't be swayed by opinions. You won't be distracted by trends. You'll walk your path with confidence, knowing that every step is leading you somewhere meaningful. It's easy to get caught up in the noise, to live for likes, for applause, for recognition. But at the end of the day, none of that matters if you're not fulfilled. None of it means anything if you're not happy. So take the time, step away from the distractions, sit with yourself, listen to your own voice, Because in that silence and that stillness, you'll find the answers you've been looking for. And once you do, once you get clear on what truly matters, you'll never waste another moment living for anything less. There's a moment in life when the noise fades, the crowd disperses, and you find yourself standing alone. And that moment, right there, that silence, it scares most people. Because in that stillness, you have to face yourself. No distractions, no applause, just you and your thoughts. But let me tell you something, don't run from it. Don't fill the quiet with mindless chatter or meaningless distractions. Lean into it, because in that quiet space lies your greatest power, your creativity, your resilience, your independence, your clarity, and your self-awareness. It's where you find the truth of who you are and what you're made of. Life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. Friends you thought would be there forever walk away. Opportunities you counted on slip through your fingers. You sit in a room, surrounded by silence, wondering if you've got what it takes to keep going. And it's in those moments, those raw, uncomfortable moments, that you discover something extraordinary. You are stronger than you think. You were never meant to rely on everyone else for your strength. Because while people may walk with you for parts of your journey, there will be stretches of road where it's just you. And that's okay. In fact, that's where the magic happens. Look back at your life for a second. Really think about it. When did you come up with your best ideas? When did you have those flashes of insight, those sparks of brilliance? It wasn't when the world was loud. It wasn't when everyone was giving you their opinions. No, it was in the quiet, in the shower, on a late night walk, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. That solitude wasn't a coincidence. It was the universe giving you space to hear your own voice, to tap into that well of creativity that gets drowned out by the chaos of daily life. Don't waste that gift. Embrace it, use it. And let's talk about resilience. Because life will knock you down. It will throw curveballs you never saw coming. You'll lose things you thought you couldn't live without. People will disappoint you. Circumstances will challenge you. But here's the truth, your greatest strength isn't found when things are easy. It's found when you endure the storm alone. Think about the people who inspire you most. They didn't become strong by avoiding pain. They became strong by facing it head on. By sitting with the discomfort, by refusing to give up even when no one was cheering them on. Resilience isn't given, it's earned. And it's earned in those quiet, lonely moments when you choose to stand back up after life has knocked you down. Being alone also builds independence. And I mean real independence, the kind that doesn't rely on anyone else to validate you or rescue you. Imagine someone training for a marathon. No one can run those miles for them. They wake up before the sun, tie their shoes, and hit the pavement alone. Every drop of sweat, every burning muscle, every mile conquered is a testament to their discipline and self-reliance. That's what solitude teaches you. It shows you that you are capable, that you don't need to wait for someone else to save you. You become your own hero. You solve your own problems. You make your own moves. And when you finally cross that finish line, whatever that looks like for you, you'll know you earned it. Not because someone carried you, but because you carried yourself. Then there's clarity, the kind of clarity that only comes when you strip away the noise. We live in a world that's constantly pulling at us. Social media telling us how to look, friends telling us what to do, society telling us what success should be. But when you step away from all that, when you sit in the stillness, you start to hear a different voice, the one inside you, the one that knows what truly matters. That voice will guide you toward your purpose, your values, your dreams. It will remind you that you don't need to live for applause. You need to live with intention, with purpose, with clarity. And let's not forget about self-awareness. Solitude holds up a mirror and forces you to look, not just at the good parts, the accomplishments, the strengths, but at the flaws, the fears, the insecurities. And while that can be uncomfortable, it's necessary. Because you can't grow if you don't know where you need to change. You can't heal if you're too busy distracting yourself from the pain. That time alone gives you the opportunity to ask yourself the hard questions. Who am I? What do I want? What's holding me back? And most importantly, what am I going to do about it? Yes, people may walk away. Yes, you might sit in silence. But remember this, you were born alone. You'll leave this world alone. And what you do in between, how you choose to stand, how you choose to live, defines who you truly are. The applause fades, the crowds disperse, but your relationship with yourself, that lasts forever. Make it a strong one. Make it one you're proud of. Use solitude as your sanctuary, your training ground, your source of strength. Don't fear being alone. Embrace it. Cherish it. Because it's in those quiet moments when the world is silent and it's just you and your thoughts that you realize something profound. You've had the power all along. You don't need anyone else to complete you, to validate you, to tell you you're enough. You are enough. You always have been. And the most powerful thing you can ever do is discover the strength within yourself, not out there, not in someone else, but right here in you. Because once you find that strength, once you tap into that well of resilience, creativity, independence, clarity, and self-awareness, there's nothing you can't face. No storm too fierce, no challenge too great, no dream too big. So the next time you find yourself, Alana, don't run, stand still, breathe, listen. In that silence lies your truth. In that stillness lies your power. And once you embrace it, once you claim it, you'll walk through this world with a confidence that no one can shake, because you'll know deep down you've got you. And that's the kind of strength no one can take away.